Hi, everyone. Welcome to the third episode of my podcast. Today, you'll hear me talk to Chris Evans. Chris played football for Harvard and was a part of their team when they won the Ivy League championship back in 2013, 14, and 15. A fun fact about him is that he went to my high school, West Windsor Plainsboro High School South, and he does mention that a couple times during the interview. Other than that, he's a super hardworking and humble guy, and I'm excited for you guys to hear what he has to say. Hi, Chris. How's it going?
Hey, Rishabh, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. I'm excited
Yeah,
for this.
it's awesome to have you on here. And for everyone, this is Chris Evans. He played football for Harvard, and he's now moved on, and he's working. He worked in Wall Street and works in finance now. So it's awesome to have you on. Let's get started.
Let's do it.
All right. So hey, just tell me about yourself to start off with. Walk me through your high school. How you played football in high school and where your career evolved from there.
Yeah, so growing up, I grew up in Plainsboro. Sports were basically my life since I was a kid. My dad is a big sports guy. Grew up playing, everything I could get my hands on, basketball, football, baseball. Um, ran around the neighborhood playing manhunt at night. Basically anything that involved running around or hitting a ball or shooting a ball, I did it. Um, so that was my life. I graduated from South in 2012. I played basketball and football there for all 4 years. And really, my life growing up was like I told you, sports and school. Like my parents knew that education was key growing up. And I was fortunate and blessed enough to go through the West Windsor Plainsboro educational system, which is obviously one of the best public schools, in New Jersey, probably in the country. And to kind of get me to focus on school, which I always loved math and stuff like that growing up, figuring out puzzles, numbers. But my parents always told me I wasn't allowed to play outside or play any sports until I got my work done for the day. So I got really good at figuring out how to finish my work quickly, so I could go do what I love the most, which is sports. So um, that was kind of my whole life up until high school. And then, in high school, finally started to grow a little bit. Not a huge guy, and when I graduated high school, I was probably like 5'9", 140 pounds, which is not the size of your average football player. But luckily for me, had a pretty good career playing quarterback and defensive back at South, as well as playing point guard and shooting guard in the basketball team. And I think I ended up leading the state in interceptions as a defensive back at one point my senior year, and started to get some attention from the smaller like D1 AA schools, and got recruited by the Ivies. So, once I got the offer from Harvard, my mom was like, "This is a no-brainer. Like, if you say no to Harvard, like I'll kill you." And I thought it was a no-brainer too. So that's kind of how I got there.
That's awesome. So moving on from there, let's focus a little bit on football. So tell me what the experience is like playing college football. I'm sure that's something people would love to hear about.
Yeah, college football is awesome. I think it's still, one of the highlights of my life. We had a really good team while I was there. I was fortunate to win, three championships. We actually three-peated my sophomore, junior, and senior year. So, I got to Harvard at a good time. We had a good team, but it's a grind. You come in, you're like, oh, high school sports, whatever. If you go play D1 sport, D2 sport, D3 sport, you're probably one of the better people that was in your county, your area, your state, etc. And when you get to college, everyone's that way. So you kind of go from being, hey, there's days where you can skate by not giving maximum effort playing in high school. That's not the case in college. Football especially. It's a game that's big on the mental, the preparation for the team that you face the next week, knowing their tendencies, knowing their schemes, knowing what three plays they run out of different formations and what percent of the time they run each one. So I spent more hours studying film during the week than I actually did practicing football. We would get up at a typical schedule during the season would be you get up at 5:15, 5:30, walk across the river, do a lift, come back, go to class, go back over the river in the afternoon, do an hour or two of film study, then go out to practice, and then come back in and do more film study in the evening. So it's a full day. You're basically working a 9 to 5, 40 hour a week job while trying to, do your schoolwork at what I assume is going to be a pretty high level of academics for everyone that's listening to this. So it's definitely a grind. It shakes out the people who truly don't love it, I would say. There's a lot of people who came in and, got offers to play. And, after a year or two, they're just like, my heart's not in it. I don't love football enough to want to go through this like grueling schedule that you go through.
Right.
Um, and I'm sure it's the same for every sport. I saw kids from the crew team in there, tennis team in there, basketball team in there all the time. And, regardless of the sport that you play, your heart's got to be in it to really do it at that level.
Fair enough. I agree, and I'm glad to hear that things worked out for you. You were able to you love the game, and you were able to enjoy that for your 4 years at Harvard.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, we had a good time. I met some of my best friends in life. Obviously, I was blessed to get a good education, and that helped me, jumpstart my professional career after I was done playing football. So, very blessed to be in that situation.
I've always wondered, like, because I'm not in college yet, so I don't get that experience of walking around a college campus. But is the is the traditional like movie scenario of like a football player true? Like, you walk around campus, people know your name, people are, coming up to you, talking to you. Do you feel like is that a realistic expectation to people? Should people expect that limelight, or did you feel like you were just another student at Harvard?
No, so funny. It's funny at Harvard. So at most like big schools, like if you're on the football team at Penn State or, Alabama, that's actually probably true, like the movie scenario. Um, it actually almost was a negative, at least when it came to academics, for me and a lot of my teammates. I think people think that you can get into Harvard just by being good at football, you know, without any sort of like academic standard or rigor, which is just like not the case. And so there have been multiple times, like I've always been good at math. My one of my neighbors, I basically spent my evenings at her house when I grew up, while my parents, worked and stuff like that. And she had me doing algebra at like an insanely early age. Like it made no sense, but she forever shaped my brain and like my career trajectory, I think.
Right.
And so like I came in and I was like really good at all the math stuff still. Like a lot of it is stuff that I'd done in high school or maybe even before that. And you have teachers that'll like question like if you did your work, like or someone's doing your work for you. And so like you kind of get stereotyped into this like dumb jock bucket or category, which is just like it's annoying and frustrating to deal with. They also, I will never forget this. My freshman year, we had workouts at like 5:30 in the morning during the season, so it's not like we can go out and party all night long like most freshman college kids do when they first get there. Um, and so there was like a giant party in our dorm room on one of the floors, and it was a bunch of the non-athletes obviously partying, and the people who were in the dorm room came around and basically tried to like put the blame on all the athletes because you get this stereotype of being just like, oh, you're not here to do work or work hard. Oh, you're only here to have fun and play sports. Um, like we all kind of like really took offense to that. I was like, what do you really think of us that we could come to a Ivy League school, party all the time, play sports, and do schoolwork? Like, it doesn't really make sense. So it's actually a bit of a negative stereotype that you have to combat at first. That I felt like, but there is also benefits, right? Like we won 3 championships while I was there. The football team got a lot of love. If you wear your Harvard football stuff around campus, certain people, will let you, get a snack or a meal or something like that, just for free, just because they're like, oh, we came to the game. I brought my kids. They loved it. We had a bunch of fun. So there, there's benefits and there's negatives as well.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes along, actually went along perfectly with my next question about, you know, what is it like playing sports, playing football at an Ivy League school? So talk to me about, obviously the endowment of a school like Harvard is huge. So talk to me about, kind of the facilities you had, the help you had, the resources you had, and maybe some of the things that people wouldn't really don't really think about, say the balance between being a student and an athlete. So talk to me about how your experience was.
Yeah. Look, my experience overall was great. As a freshman, it's tough to get acclimated to, especially football. It's such a physical sport. And you're coming in as I was 18 when I got to campus. You know, at the time, probably like 5'9", 150 pounds, and I'm playing against guys that are 21, 22, 23 if they're a fifth year senior, and they're six two, 6'3", 6'4", 280, 300 pounds, and so there's like a pretty big physicality gap when you first get to college, unless you're just like a freak athlete in high school. So a lot of what you do as a freshman is, strength training, speed training. Like luckily I was fast, so I didn't have to be the biggest, strongest person. I could be speedy, and also really, really dove into the mental aspect of the game. I probably watched more film than most everyone that I played with, and you know you get to a point where you see the same thing on film over and over again. You could start to predict and call out what the other team's going to do before they do it. And that's another big advantage that you can get by just putting in the work. It's not like you have to be smarter than the next guy. You don't have to have this like innate sort of brain power. It's literally just hard work. And I think people do workouts and they do a little more than the bare minimum, and they're like, oh, I'm working hard. There's a difference between doing a little more than minimum and truly working hard, and it really shows on the game tape and in games uh, what people do that. And then facility wise, like you get there, it's really cool. Honestly, like there's a big locker room, pretty modern. You know, you put all your workout stuff on a loop after practice, and it like gets washed for you overnight, and you come back and all your stuff's clean, which is like very different than high school. Like you practice in the same stinky pants or shorts with football, a couple times a week, and then you go home and wash them on the weekends. So it definitely feels a bit more professional. And then for game day, like I was blessed. Harvard Stadium is a very old classic stadium. It looks like the Coliseum in Rome, if you've ever seen that. And it's a horseshoe shape, so it's got a cool, pretty funky echo to it. And it always sounds a lot louder than it is. Like I think the most people we played in front of there was probably 34 or 35,000 people.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so the Harvard Yale game is a big rivalry game. And my junior year, when we were trying to go undefeated, which we ultimately did, College Game Day actually came for the week. So Kirk Herbstreit, Lee Corso, all those guys,
Mm.
they came and they watched our practices. They were in our film rooms, and it was pretty cool just having oh, this is like how people play at Alabama feel on a regular basis, and like here I am at Harvard about to play in this humongous game, and I kind of get like a similar treatment. It was pretty cool. So yeah, overall, it was a blast. I wouldn't trade it for the world. It helped me build a lot of connections, meet a lot of my favorite people that I know today, and also help kickstart my career. So
I'm glad to hear that. It's awesome to hear such a positive experience from sports, and I think it's it may add to the dream of some people. Like who doesn't want to play in like this super cool, super modern place, right? Like I think it's
yeah,
definitely good to hear that, so people can set goals. Um, so your situation is a little. It's not. It's probably the most popular outcome after college sports. Like we have some, of course, some that go pro, some that coach, but of course, the majority. I would think the majority of athletes end up joining the workforce, or getting out there and doing something that wasn't related to college sports. So talk to me about how playing college sports, how specifically based off what you told me about your schedule, I think that's strenuous, and I'm sure that
yeah,
that helped you um, with your career, and being used to that, and being on top of things. So talk to me about how being a student athlete kind of translated, and like you kept saying, kickstarted your career. So what are the benefits of that?
yeah. I think that's exactly it. Like the two things that come to mind. with how sports translate directly to the workplace is just that innate grit you get and the ability to overcome adversity. Um, we had really good seasons while we were playing there, but none of the seasons were just like a straight line smooth. There were ups and downs. There were games that we won that we should have lost. There were games that we lost that it's like, hey, if you don't bounce back from this, you're not going to end up winning a championship. And how do we, look in the mirror, see what happened, and fix it immediately? And I think, just like the lessons that teaches you, and the skills you get from doing that on a repeated basis translate almost directly to the workplace. Um, Almost no matter what job you do outside of like certain very niche jobs, like you come in, you don't really know a ton about how to work as an adult, and you're most likely going to work on a team full of people, some very senior, some the same age as you, and they're kind of going to show you the ropes. And that's kind of how it is when you first come in. There's people the same age as you. There's people that are more senior than you, and you kind of just figure out how you fit in. What skills that you have that are maybe a bit more diverse than the rest of the teams, and how you can start to impact and add value right away. I think especially within finance, which is what I do. That's a big part of it. Like, you don't really know what you're doing when you start in finance. I worked on a trading desk at Bank of America for 5 years, and now working at a hedge fund. I wouldn't be able to work at a hedge fund without getting those bearings underneath me to try and figure out, how do markets work? When people trade, why are they trading? What makes a good trade different than a bad trade? What makes a lucky trade different from a unlucky trade? Like, there's a lot of things that go into it. So I think, and look, inevitably we all mess up at some point in your first couple of years, and mess up in a big way. In finance, there's often a dollar cost that comes with you messing up. In other industries, sometimes it's a manager yelling at you. It's messing up a pitch deck before a big presentation. It can be anything, but when you touch the hot fire, like not to do it again, that's exactly what those experiences are. For most people, the ones that turn out to do well, you tend to be like, ooh, that didn't feel good. I didn't like that. I don't like losing money when I shouldn't have lost money. And you kind of just like, you grow from it, you learn from it, you become, a bit more particular, a bit more careful, and then you just bounce back. And I think it's kind of like, it's almost a perfect metaphor, sports and, kind of that adversity you face in a new job in the workplace. So, yeah, I don't think there's actually anything that can prepare you better for the workplace than sports, personally.
I 100% agree. Although I've not gone through that yet, but I think
Yeah.
I can see it. I see the effect sports has on the future. And I think to hit my last question, you mentioned me before our interview that you kind of didn't know what you wanted to do to while you were in while you were younger. So your life was school and sports. So could you just tell me how playing that sport, continuing to play in college, how that either helped shape your future, if that helped in any way, if it kind of kept you going and gave you something to focus on, even though you didn't know, like you said, some people know that they want to be engineers, and they're focusing so much time on that, but other people don't have that. So did sports
Yeah.
kind of fill that role?
Yeah, I think so. I actually heard about my job through sports. Like, one of my teammates who was older than me, uh, interned at Bank of America the year before me, and he was like, "Hey, I know no one's like talked to you about this, but I think, knowing what I know about you, you're like a math inclined guy. You like, fast paced environments, quick thinking, problem solving. I think you should check this out." And so, like, I literally think I wouldn't have heard about it if I didn't play my sport. Although you can make the argument that, like, because I spent so much time down at the field doing sports, like I missed out on all the career fairs and whatever else that I might have found out about it. But it was cool hearing from someone that knows you instead of an employer coming to sell you on why you should work from them. That, like, hey, I think this thing might actually be a fit for you. And then, like, small world, my first round interviewer at the bank is someone who's like, "Oh, I'm also an Ivy League alumni. I played football at Harvard." And I'm like, "Oh, like, we have so much to talk about." And it's cool when you just like have these random happenstances, and you run into people that have the same background as you. Um, but like, look, I I've always been someone like, look, I've always known I was good at math. I've been a math guy my whole life. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with that. I love sports, so I thought I wanted to be an athletic trainer for a lot of my life because my athletic trainer, Bill, in high school, he was awesome. He took care of me all the time. Kept me healthy as much as he could, taped me up and wrapped me up so I could make it through games when I needed to. And I was like, look, this person's awesome. He cares about the kids. He helps people, achieve their athletic goals. This is amazing. Uh, and then I quickly found out like I wasn't really passionate about it. Like I like working with people and I like sports, but maybe athletic training is not the best avenue for that. So then I looked into doing something in teaching, which I did for a summer. Um, I love working with second and third grade kids. And teaching and giving back is always something that I wanted to do. I actually, was a founding board member of a nonprofit called Make a Play Foundation, and we actually help underrepresented student athletes in college with their transition to the corporate workforce after they're done playing. So I've, again, by the grace of God, I was lucky enough to be able to, be connected with a great team that wanted to start something that we're all deeply passionate about. But yeah, like I don't know. I think especially working in finance or any job that commands a lot of hours out of you, um, you learn to prioritize your time with sports. Sometimes there's an assignment that you want to do, 2 days before class that you have to push off to the last minute because something, with your team comes first. And in the workplace, you'll get a lot of stuff thrown at you throughout the course of a day, week, month, and you can't just, drop everything you're doing to do the new task all the time. You have to prioritize and figure out which of these things that I must do is the most important and what order can I complete them in, to meet the deadlines on all. And I think playing sports in college helps you with that.
I appreciate the wisdom, and I think that's a lot to pull from. I think hopefully people can take what you're saying and apply it, or take what you said and keep that into consideration when they move forward. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
So once again, I loved having you on here. Thank you for taking time out of your day to be here. And it was a pleasure talking to you.
Awesome. You did great. This is a great interview, and my first podcast technically. So, thank you for having me, and looking forward to more in the future, hopefully.
Yes. Awesome. All right. Take care.
Take it easy.
Thanks for listening to this podcast. Make sure to follow me on Instagram and share this with others. Have a good day.